Penn State's defense is the reason that the Nittany Lions are at this point, because the offense hasn't really held up its other end of the bargain. I mean, that was an ugly one against Ohio State. It, I hope it doesn't have to come down to them needing almost that miracle type of play. Penn State hasn't been able to beat Ohio State. And I think about this, somebody pointed this out to me, that the only reason they beat the Buckeyes was because of that miracle play, right? Imagine if Tyler Durden is able to make that kick inside of 40 yards. Super reliable, right? But the kick is blocked and it's returned for a touchdown. That doesn't happen. Penn State might even be on a longer losing streak in that case. It took that miracle play was going to happen. Then it got called back because of a Kalen King hold. The miracle play happened. And I want to come full circle with this, Matt. The miracle play happened in the game last year against Michigan, but they couldn't keep up with it, right? The Curtis Jacobs fumble returned for a touchdown. This looks like an all-even type of game, and then Michigan blows Penn State out of the water because defensively they couldn't make the adjustments. They admitted that on tape, Michigan kept running inside zone, and then this is where second half adjustments come into play. They changed to the counter, and Penn State had no answer for it. So what does Penn State do in the offseason? Penn State becomes one of the best run defenses in all of the country. Yes, analytically, they're still top 5 in the pass defense. But, Matt, I got to be honest. Looking at some of the recent analytics, I don't know if something's wrong with Kalen King. Johnny Dixon and Daquan Hardy didn't particularly look good against Maryland. They didn't have to be ultimately tested because that game was so far out of reach and Penn State's pass rush was there. But the secondary, at least for the cornerbacks, have been a little disappointing as of late, given the performances against Ohio State, Indiana, the communication problems and all the big plays that they allowed. And then Maryland was able to pick up some chunk yards. And then you look at the analytics. Yeah, they lost those battles one-on-one against the Maryland wide receivers. Michigan doesn't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. I know that, but they still have some playmakers. Roman Wilson has become that guy for JJ McCarthy. So it is the run defense, I think, is actually going to be a mainstay here and help out Penn State's case. But I worry about JJ McCarthy, who can extend plays, is a good quarterback, will be a first-round pick at some point. They will be able to move the football through the air if Penn State's secondary doesn't get it together.
Yeah, how about JJ McCarthy completing 75% of his passes this season now, certainly against some porous pass defenses in those games. He will not complete 75% of his passes against his secondary. I get what you're saying. Against Indiana, you could go back to Kalen King getting picked on a little bit. Looking at some of the blown coverages, I don't think that any of them were King's fault. I think probably one of them.
He did. In man-to-man, he was getting beat from time to time. He wasn't winning more of the battles than he was losing, and that's my point. Kalen King's supposed to be your new Joey Porter Jr., and I'm starting to lean towards the idea that maybe Kalen King isn't a first-round pick type of talent. Maybe he's not elite. He's good, but that's not going to get it done against Ohio State, clearly, and Michigan.
Yeah, and you wonder if it's just a matter of fact with him not really being targeted first 6 or 7 weeks of the season leading up to Marvin Harrison and nobody throwing his way. It just seemed like he wasn't able to get many pass breakups. He wasn't able to get many reps with the ball in his vicinity because they just weren't going his way, which I think says a lot about him. But, yeah, thinking about some of those coverage breakdowns against Indiana, I know one was on a blitz where Dixon and the linebacker both blitzed.
That was Zach Wheatley was supposed to pick up the
Wheatley. Yeah, Wheatley was one of them. He's an interesting one. Obviously, I came into this season and I wasn't alone. Phil Steele also said this, that Penn State had the best secondary in the country. And I came in and I was thinking about the safety group and with Jalen Reed and Wheatley and Winston and Ellis. And you were thinking it was going to be probably Wheatley and Reed starting. Wheatley hasn't played all that much, or at least it seems from the eye test. But boy, has KJ Winston stepped up. And another great game from him last week.
He's been their best guy in the safety spot analytically. Yep.
He's been kind of like my underdog, dark horse of the year for this Penn State secondary. But, yeah, I mean, the run defense, you wish you could take that minus 49 from last week where I think Maryland set an all-time record low in college football history for rushing. You wish you could take that and, like, implement it to this game where you could say, like, oh, Michigan has to start 49 yards back or something, because it just doesn't matter when you're looking at this game. Like Penn State's run defense was incredible last year too. They still gave up half a mile on the ground to Michigan. I know like the narrative this year is that Michigan's more, they like to throw the ball more. JJ McCarthy's coming along as a passer.
Yep.
I don't know. None of these 9 teams that they've played. Rutgers is probably is Rutgers the best pass defense they faced? Like, I don't know.
I guess so, because they played Purdue,
yeah.
Michigan State, UNLV, right?
Right. And what Penn State kept doing against Ohio State, and it, Ohio State was almost equally terrible on third down in that game. Yeah. What they kept doing is they kept getting the Buckeyes to 3rd and long. And
then they get bailed out by Marvin Harrison Jr.
They just had to resort. They just had to resort to Marvin Harrison. It works. Now, and I say it works, and then I look up and like against Rutgers in the first half, he has like 1 catch, and I wonder like what the hell's going on. But
they bracketed him, they double teamed him. Penn State felt confident enough that Kalen King was going to be able to handle that assignment, and he didn't.
He didn't. Yeah. So you wonder with Michigan 3rd and long situations. Certainly, they haven't faced any much this year. Their goal is to get themselves into manageable situations. And I think, it goes back to if you win this toss, you defer, right? And you let Mo Bamba blast in the stadium. And I know I was kind of steering the conversation in this direction. I know we're talking a lot of X's and O's here. I just like on both sides, whether it's trying to get in the brain of Yurcich or Diaz, I just keep thinking about, if Penn State just does their job here. Like you hear some of the comments that Michigan has been making in the press conferences. I know one of their offensive linemen came out and said, like, I'm okay with being the villain. Yeah. It's just a corny comment. Like, isn't that almost identifying that, like, you did something wrong? Like, what do you mean you're okay with being the villain? Like, that's not the problem here, right? Like, it's not someone coming after you guys for, something you did like a penalty that, like, I know that they made a huge deal in the Michigan Ohio State a couple years ago where their whole offensive line came to JJ McCarthy's defense and like beat an Ohio State player up. That's the kind of thing that it's like, okay, we're the villain. Like, this is not the time for you to say, I'm okay with being the villain. And they're embracing that. They brought Ric Flair into the building. Like, what says we want to be a heel? And it just, it sucks, like, what this program does. I go back to like the Quinn Nordine thing. I know some people on the stream will probably remember that. Harbaugh sleeping over at his house. He flips Nordine. And the Michigan, by the way, the Michigan kickers have been much better since Nordine was there. I know he missed an extra point against Penn State in his career, and that was crazy. But yeah, just going back to, the sign stealing and the, some of the questionable things that Jim Harbaugh's done and the weak scheduling, it does set up for, Penn State to kind of be America's team on Saturday. And I really do wonder, Zach, and I've decided it is, because I'm trying to give myself reason to believe that Penn State will win this game. I think you've seen the genesis of the downfall of the Michigan Wolverines with this latest news. I think they'll finish the season 10-2. And I think that Jim Harbaugh will be off to the NFL. And I think with the NCAA and the FBI knocking down doors on campus and who knows, right, what the investigation has entailed. It's too much of a distraction. You can't keep that noise out. It's too loud. And even Jim Harbaugh, who may be one of the greatest coaches at living in a bubble and keeping tunnel vision, he's not going to be able to keep his 18 to 24-year-olds focused on the task at hand. And then you add on that environment. You add on the advantage that Penn State has with a fan base who last time we were in Beaver Stadium, were miserable. Like, I remember shaking an Indiana fan's hand and saying, I can't believe I'm saying this for the first time. We got lucky to beat Indiana. Like, you think about even the bad years Penn State has bullied Indiana, right? And that game was way too close for comfort. And I'm looking around like, what a sigh of relief. Like, we were not happy for 58 minutes. You channel that energy, you take it on the road to Maryland, you play your most complete game all year, and now you come into this? What a spot for, like, Penn State fans to be pissed off and like be ready. Like, it couldn't have gone better from like a momentum standpoint, right? To have the low, then the high. Now you're here, right? And we all knew Michigan was going to be 9-0, right? Everybody, I figured they'd be number 2 coming in, honestly. But Guess they just don't have enough strength of schedule. But yeah, I think that
that's what the committee's looking at. Yeah,
it's important to talk about matchups, as it always is, and like I said, there's not too many advantages for Penn State to find here. There's a lot of, just not a lot of holes in Michigan. So you have to look at outside and off the field, and you just have to wonder. First of all, I don't think it'll have any impact that like they don't have our signs. Like that already happened with TCU, right? They got beat by TCU probably because TCU faked the signs, right? I don't think Michigan's going to lose momentum or come in lost, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that like you can play Purdue and you can handle Purdue through these distractions, right?
Yeah. Easy.
You can't do that. You can't do that with Penn State. And we're sitting here on Tuesday night. We don't even know, Zach, for 100% sure if Jim Harbaugh is going to be in State College on Saturday. We don't know yet. That could be massive for them.
Yeah.
And like I said, let's delay this one to 7:30, right? Let's find a way to get this one under the lights, and I think we'll be all right. But yeah, that's my take.